Alright gang, what is happening? Before we go any further, I want to snag your ear just for a moment to talk about Anchor. If you're thinking of starting a podcast of your very own, or perhaps you already have one but you're looking for a new host, then I can't recommend Anchor highly enough, and that is for a number of reasons. Firstly, it is free. That's right. No monthly charges, no reoccurring fees or startup fees. Secondly, Anchor gives you a number of creative tools to record, edit, and arrange your podcast episodes, which is perfect if you don't even know where to start when making a podcast. You can record through your computer via their website browser, anchor.fm, or get this, straight through their free-to-download app. So whether you're looking to document the daily adventures of your labradoodle, create an original episodic drama based on all of that true crime you binged during lockdown, or you're wanting to create a show that investigates both the mysteries and the meaning of... No, wait, hang on a minute. That's my wheelhouse. Get out. Find your own lane. Whatever your ideas are, with the app, all you have to do is hit record on your phone and boom, you're creating podcast gold in a matter of seconds. Not only that, but Anchor will also distribute your show to the likes of Spotify and Apple Podcasts, ensuring you and your labradoodle crime drama lands in the earboxes of countless new listeners. It is everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
My life has been just one absurdity after another, I think. And like I said, it was normal to me. So I never really thought about it much. It was like, that's just how life is. Like, you just have absurd shit happen to you and then you deal with it.
Maybe if you don't want to talk, you could just listen.
Gang, what is happening? I am Mal Foster and you are listening to the latest episode of your third favourite above average but infinitely curious podcast, Dined Out, a show dedicated to exploring both the mysteries and the meaning of life, an audio kaleidoscope of culture, experience, and something else. What is it? Oh yeah, stuff. This week's episode, we have a real eclectic mix of stuff for you, as I had the utmost pleasure and privilege to talk to Rick from 5011 Media. Me and Rick got linked up via the power of Reddit. I mean, that thing is just, it's a gift that keeps on giving, is Reddit, I'll be honest. So yeah, we're about to dive into a really multi-layered, multifaceted conversation that kind of goes from a number of places. But there's a lot in here. You know, to put it mildly, Rick has lived a hell of a life and we are just scratching the surface. But some of the things you can expect to hear in this episode, what this episode is kind of focusing on, is Rick's time in the military. That's where we start. And then we go into his time working as an EMT, the things that he took from that, some of the traumatic experiences that he took from that, the reasons why he had to leave that. And then we get into a real pivotal turning point within Rick's life, where he discovered and started going into Ketamine Infusion Therapy. We look at how he found that, what it's done for him, the benefits, and how that has kind of led him into creating art, how that has opened up a personal door for him, and how that door, that artwork, is now opening doors for other people as well. Yeah, we're kind of going all over the place, and tonally, it shifts a lot. You know, obviously there are moments where there is some serious discussion, but there's also moments of levity and a brief inclusion of the one, the only, Harry Belafonte. How that actually plays out, how that mixes in with all the other things we're going to be talking about, well, yeah, you just got to listen and find out. I'm going to leave you on the cliff edge of that particular tease. And without further ado, let's jump in the line and let's get into it. This is my multifaceted conversation with the fascinating Rick from 5011 Media. Enjoy, guys, and I will see you on the other side.
I feel like my life is like Forrest Gump meets Joe Dirt. It's really hard to explain, but I mean, I've done a lot of different things and a lot of things that, from year to year contradict each other. So I don't have just a one side view of things. Like, so in 2005, I went to an anti-war rally in Washington, D.C. And then literally the next year I joined the military. So
Wow. What happened there? What kind of prompted that sort of switch of mindset?
I had reached a point where I realized that I was 20. I had no prospects as far as a job, a future, anything. I didn't even graduate. I dropped out of high school, didn't have a GED, nothing. So like I'm just existing at this point. And
Right.
I had realized that in order for me to not do that, I had to leave. I had to leave my hometown. Like I had to get away from it because there was no way that I was going to be able to fix anything or change anything about myself with the same surroundings. And at that time, I mean, I'm 20, I'm working dead end jobs until I quit. So I don't have any means to get away.
Right.
But the army has a means. So I found a recruiter and told him that I wanted to join. That was in July. I shipped out like November that year.
What did you ship out to?
Fort Benning, Georgia. I went infantry. So anybody that goes in the military and the army will go to Fort Benning if they go into infantry.
Okay. Wow. So how long were you in that for? Like, how long was that part of your life?
It was about a year. I ended up getting a medical discharge due to anxiety issues, which at the time, there was no way that I was ever going to comprehend because I had a lot of childhood trauma that had never been fully dealt with, and more, I built an ego up around myself to protect myself from it. So that, was affecting everything else in my life,
Yeah.
but without me realizing it. So
Right.
I got out of the military in, I think, late 2007, 2008. And from there, I kind of bummed around for a little bit. But at this point, like I had gotten my GED, so I was able to join the military. So I had that going for me at this point. And
did you feel like you'd moved ahead? So beforehand, you kind of came to that sort of very clear realization that you need to get out of your surroundings to kind of move forward. Do you feel like that actually helped you push forward?
Absolutely. I think that my time, no matter how long or short it was in the military, played a very pivotal part in my life. Growing up without a father, being one of the original latchkey kids in America, I didn't have much structure or discipline. So what I lacked growing up, I got a really fast, hard injection of discipline. And because growing up, I didn't have like a role model to instill these things. I mean, I didn't have like these values. I didn't have these core beliefs or anything. Like I was just, just whatever, man. I got whatever.
Yeah.
So that, I think, for the most part, I think that is what really structured my framework for becoming an adult.
So you get out of the military. What is sort of the next major point that you arrive to or get to?
So I dated a girl for a while that did not live in my home city. She lived about 2 hours away, and so I had a relationship with her for about a year, and it was failing. And that's when she was like, "Hey, you got to get into school for something and get your shit together." And so, like, the quickest way for me to figure out to get my shit together, I was working as a security guard, and I had saw a couple of firefighter, like paramedics or EMTs, and they were doing a standby, and I was talking to them about how do I get into this gig, because you guys are just like shooting the shit, man. So they got me in touch with the ambulance service for the city I lived in at the time, and they had an accelerated course. So I had applied for that and got in, and it was like 7 weeks, and then I would come out an EMT, and I thought that was hot shit. I was like, oh man, I'm going to be an EMT. So the relationship never fully recovered, and yeah, it's I think that's because now she's real into women.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no fault of my own, I guess, but I mean, maybe some. I'll take responsibility, but I wasn't the greatest person, but I'm working on that now.
Mhm,
So I don't know what it was about. What it was about EMS. I don't know. I guess it just fed the beast, so to speak,
mhm.
because I was already damaged from the childhood trauma
Okay.
that I like. My dad was. No, I wasn't like physically abused, but there was a lot of mental and emotional abuse and
Right.
neglect. And
I was going to ask about that because I want you to be as comfortable to talk about it as possible. So,
I can at this point. I mean, there's just so much of it. It's hard to
right,
like when you start to try like chronologically lay it out. You're like, ah, fucking god! Like, how many lives have I lived?
right,
Growing up, it was me, my mom, and my dad, and things. I assume things were good
right.
because I do have good memories, but as far as like my father goes, his mom died like when I was 4. So after that is when he just like started drinking real heavy and getting into drugs,
Mm,
and then it just became like a real big ordeal where he would use me to manipulate my mother to get his way because he was a shitty person.
yeah.
And but he knew that I needed and wanted his attention
Hmm.
so bad that like I mean I didn't care what we did when we hung out. So
Right.
like he would use me to commit petty crimes sometimes. Like one time we stole a boat.
Oh,
Yeah, that's another 20-minute story. During that time in my life, I was living with my mom, and then my mom was divorced from my father, and him and his girlfriend and her kids also live with me and my mom. Like what the? How was I ever gonna have a chance of being fucking normal in that? Right?
yeah, yeah. That's a unique situation to put it mildly.
Right. And so try to like imagine being 6 and realizing that none of this is normal. Holy shit. Like, when you say something that is very unique to, like I said, I can't remember what it was, but I remember that it was something very unique to just my family dynamic. And I just the way that somebody looked at me when I said it, I was like, ah.
So, in your perspective, like a 6-year-old framing, that's just how things were. And then it's the reaction of somebody else when you've told them that kind of shatters that and is like, oh, maybe it's not.
Right. I think that experience just in itself, I think, really resonated with me
Mm,
and opened me up to being a lot more perceptive of the world around me. Because
right.
at that point, like that's all I knew. Like I was like, this isn't messed up. Like isn't aren't all families like?
Yeah, but I suppose that's just because of the age that you're at. You know, when you're at that age, you're still forming what is like quote unquote normal, what is regular, what is, the standard framework for the rest of the world. So, yeah, at that age, you are very insular. So it's completely understandable why you wouldn't question it.
Yeah, and then just when a child like when it's like finding out Santa Claus isn't real. It's like holy, oh
Right.
my god, like my family's like, oh my god, I'm white trash. So I grew up relatively poor, not super poor, but and that's another weird thing to think about because I grew up like single income. My mom was a single mother pretty much, and I mean my dad was there, but it was only due to like the need. That was like how my mom was able to make sure that child protective services didn't come and get me because back in the 90s it was like, is there an adult in the house? It's like, yeah. Like, well, what are you calling us for then? It wasn't like, well, what is that adult doing? Because my dad would fall asleep with cigarettes in his mouth like after taking a handful of Xanax, and I would have to go over there and pick the cigarette out of his hand to make sure he didn't burn the fucking house down.
Yeah.
So, but as long as only thing CPS cared about was there an adult in the house,
Right. They didn't care
and
what the adult was
yeah,
aging, just as long as there's one present.
yeah. My life has been just one absurdity after another, I think. And like I said, that was just it was normal to me.
Hmm.
So I never really thought about it much. It was like that's just how life is. Like you just have absurd shit happen to you and then you deal with it. and then I started telling, whenever I started to kind of get out into the world and through working with EMS, and then eventually like I contracted overseas in Afghanistan for about 6 months in 2011, and just I never I don't know if it was that I was running from something or I was trying to run to something, if I was motivated by fear or necessity, but I never allowed the possibility of something ending poorly affect my decisions on what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those things that like I started being like, man, life sucks, like, but not all the time.
Right.
And I don't know, with the past 2 years have really kind of changed me in a lot of ways that I'm trying to figure out now. I'm gonna try to sort through.
In what way exactly do you mean? Is there a specific that you can kind of latch onto there?
Just I've my entire existence, who I am and what I've been, has kind of opened up for me due to starting ketamine treatments.
Mm-hmm.
And we can get into that.
That was on my list. We'll get there. That is definitely one of my points.
Yeah. And that's why it's so hard for me to just, when somebody is like, "Hey, so tell me about yourself," it's like, which
Where do you start?
what lifetime here?
Right.
So yeah, and then like I've been looking into the other kind of mental kind of dysfunctions. Maybe I don't know if that's the right word, but other different things about the way that my brain works, in particular, versus how other people's, like, due to how it developed and formed.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a lot more sense, and I feel that I know myself a lot more in depth, and I'm not pushing away and fighting with who I am anymore.
Okay, but that's it. Well, first and foremost, that's an amazing thing to hear. Relative to the fact that I really don't know you at all. I mean, it's just an amazing thing to hear that the fact that within 2 years you've got to a place where you do feel like you can embrace yourself a little bit more. What I want to ask is, you mentioned and you touched upon the idea of running away or running to something. Do you feel like in the last 2 years you've maybe stopped and given yourself time for yourself thoughts and your understanding of yourself to kind of catch up?
Not the entire 2 years, but definitely everything that has happened in the 2 years
Mm-hmm.
has definitely been leading up to this moment. So, May of 2019, I was skateboarding. I actually have a video. If you have a website, I can email it to you. You can post it so that you can watch it. Where I broke both of my legs. I went up a ramp. My foot came off the board. One foot stayed on the board, and I did the splits, and all the all of my weight went right onto my knees, which caused
Oh,
the bottom part of my left femur and then the top part of my right tibia to fracture due to the MCL ligament in both legs being ruptured. So they were pulled to the point of fracturing my bones, and then they
oh.
tore.
And this is the incident that then led you, I believe, to retire from working as a paramedic, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
So I fell and I injured myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I got up and I was able to walk right then. There was, a decent amount of pain, I would say, but I didn't feel, I don't know, maybe it's just, there's something wrong with me, but I was like, I can walk this off. This is fine. Like, this is nothing. And so I skated for like another 2 hours before going home. And then I go home, go to sleep, do my thing, go to bed. And then I'll wake up and I can't walk. Like, I can't, like, both of my knees have swollen up to the size of like softballs, and I'm unable to walk. So like I managed to get up and get to my car and drive myself and make a doctor's appointment and drive myself to the doctor. And my doctor's like, you need to go be seen in the ER. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. I eventually was, bedbound for 6 weeks before I was able to get up and walk again.
Presumably, you regained some sense of feeling in your legs to be able to get yourself to the hospital.
Well, no, it wasn't that like I didn't have sensation. It was just that I could not I couldn't bend my at the knee.
Right. Okay. You couldn't support your full
Yeah,
weight through your legs.
yeah. It wasn't like a paralyzed thing. It was just that.
Okay. Right. I was gonna say.
No. I would have definitely called for an ambulance if I had woken up and my legs were paralyzed. But oh my god. So and then I used a walker for I think another 6 to 8 weeks after that. So and then I got to the point where I was able to walk again. It took I think another 6 months, 6 to 8 months for me to heal back to what my new normal was going to be, and the new normal was just it wasn't going to be good enough.
Okay. I was gonna say. So you got to a point, but it wasn't to where you were before, and that's what's kind of led you to having to leave.
Yeah, and it became I realized that I would be a detriment to my patient as well
Right.
as the job itself would be a detriment to my further health.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh yeah, for sure, because of the physicality involved in that particular job. Yeah.
and yeah, and that was I mean that was just one of the things that I was trying to come to terms with that I mean it's just not a job that I will be able to do anymore.
Right.
And that was a real hard pill to swallow for me because
I was going to say because, like, from what I can remember, you were doing that for 12 years. Is that right?
yeah, I've been doing it since 2000. I mean, literally, basically my entire adult life, I've been an EMT or a paramedic because I started at the age of 23,
Right.
and here I am, trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know anything else. Like, literally, EMS is, I mean, that I can't transfer. I mean, I guess I could, but that's a lot of other factors that played into that, as well as just kind of removing myself entirely from the medical field.
Right. Which, yeah, as you said, I mean, 12 years, your entire adult life, pretty much. That's like a huge chunk of your identity, and not that we kind of should be attaching our whole selves to what it is that we do, but it is an integral part of who we become. So losing that, yeah, I can only imagine how difficult that must have been.
And I think that's why I did so well at it, and why I enjoyed it so much is because I was able to get that rush. I was never in my younger years, like I would, I did pills every once in a while, and I would smoke pot, and I smoke pot now, but like I was never really into drugs or doing
Mhm.
anything like that. But getting it into EMS, that adrenaline, I think that became a real addiction for me too.
Yeah, well, I can definitely imagine that because you are thrown into such unique situations, and the rewards that come with knowing that you're saving lives and that you're making a genuine difference to not just one person but numerous people.
That aspect of the job, I think, is where I tried to kind of mentally be.
Hmm.
But like after, I think I'd been out for over a year, like almost a year and a half. Like I had been, and they like my job the company or the ambulance service that I was working for had kept my job, and I was keeping in contact with them, and it came to the point where it was time to let it go.
So you were kind of holding on with the hope that eventually you will get to a point where you can go back.
And I would be like, well, I can just do it part time, or I just
Right.
kept telling myself things like that, and it just holding on to that, I think, was doing more harm than good at that point. So I think going ahead and just leaving EMS, like it wasn't official retirement. It's just my personal. I'm not getting any money from it,
Right.
but it was just one of those.
It's you coming to the realization that you just physically cannot do this anymore.
Right. And then how over the time of me being off the ambulance, how much my mental health and my anxiety had improved just with not having to constantly, be subjected to that revolving door of traumatic experiences day in and day out.
Are you saying that during your time as a paramedic that revolving door was going round constantly?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like
Was that partly because of the job, or?
Oh no, yeah, it was 100% connected to the job. There's things that you can experience as, you know, I mean, many first responders can tell you that I can't convey the internal response that you have after being repetitively subjected to, you know, that over and over again. Like, I've been able to discuss lunch with my partner while picking skull fragments out of a ceiling, and that's like not even being hyperbolic. That is legitimately
Wow.
part of one of the jobs that we do. Like when we do body removals of, you know, suicides, you know, part of our job is we have to collect all as much as we can. So, and it's just, it becomes so routine. It's like whatever anybody else does at their job.
To throw us back a little bit, we were talking about the revolving door of just sort of anxiety with the job and what have you. And you said that after you'd come to the realization that you were no longer going to be doing that, that you kind of had a bit of a respite from that.
Yeah.
How was that? Did that just something that came naturally with not having to deal with some of the traumatic situations that you were talking about that come sort of part and parcel with that line of work?
Yeah, it came with that. And then I was prescribed Xanax for my anxiety, for breakthrough anxiety and panic attacks,
Okay.
as well as oxycodone 10 milligrams 3 times a day, which, I mean, between those two, I think I was maybe awake for 45 minutes at a time.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So eventually it came to the point where I had to quit taking this stuff because it wasn't helping as intended. Like, you can't be anxious if you're not awake. You can't hurt if you're not awake. Yeah. But
Right.
I don't, like, I'm just, so I stopped, and I don't advise anybody, but I stopped doing them, both of them. I had been on the prescription Xanax for, I think it was a couple of years at that point, but the pain medicine, the oxycodone, I was on for I think 3 or 4 months, and then I quit everything cold turkey and started smoking pot.
How was that transition for you in terms of like your general well-being?
With the being awake more energetic, more, I mean, just alive, really. So
Yeah.
there was that, and then the creative spark from the marijuana. And back then I had a note with the ink pen, and I had started doing some doodles and some art pieces on that, but nowhere to the scale of what I've been doing in the past couple of months. And
Is this the first time that you'd kind of tried your hand at art? Uh, as you say, starting off with doodles, is this something that you've done before in the past and have just picked up again, or has this been like a constant in the background somewhere?
oh no, I think this, here in the past, like maybe year or two, I had just recently started picking up art, and that was post EMS. Like, it's been after my injury, whenever I was taken out. I think that just being able to have a little bit more of that mental space
Right.
freed up from not having to do deal with constant trauma, the daily trauma, that I was able to kind of redirect that to more creative endeavors. And I think the pot really helped out with that too.
Did it help with the anxiety as well?
Yes, it very much does. It still does. I only take 2 medications prescription right now, and that's Adderall, because it legitimately makes me a more organized and collected person.
Yeah, it just helps with your general thought pattern and correlation and workflow. Yeah, I get
and
it.
There's nothing, like, no, there's no alternative that I can. I mean, people can say, oh, you can do it yourself. It's like, no, I need this. Like, the way that my brain works, the way that I understand things, and the way I that is a chemical that my body needs.
Yeah.
But other than that, and then I take an SSRI.
What is that?
Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So it's basically for depression, anxiety.
Okay.
And so I take that, and I take my Adderall, and then once a month I will get I think I'm at 65 milligram ketamine infusion
Yeah, okay, so that's a good segue because that is definitely one of the talking points I wanted to cover. So, how would you describe it exactly? So, what is the procedure? Is it done intravenously?
Well, so there's two different ways that they administer it at where I go. I do the intravenous way, which is more expensive and not covered by insurance,
Hmm.
but it's the more effective, the faster kind of
Yeah,
achieving therapeutic levels.
sure.
But no, so basically, ketamine infusion is that they take a certain amount milligram based off of the individual's weight, and usually it's anywhere between half a milligram per kilo to a whole milligram per kilo. And they infuse it. Infusion just means a volume over time. So I think they put it in a 100 cc syringe, and then you go into this room, and you can choose to have they have like these laser light show, like planetarium style laser light shows that play on the ceiling, a CBD infuser. You can choose your own music, like medical recliner. Like it's a legit thing. Like, I
Mm.
prefer to have all of the lights out, and I bring my own like headphones, and I listen to my own music. But
Just out of curiosity, what are you listening to?
I actually have a playlist on Spotify called Ketamine Jams, and that's what I listen to. So yeah,
Who's in there out of interest?
hold on, let me pull it up.
So this is like a side tangent, but I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah. Hold on, we'll
I probably
yeah.
have a bunch of playlists myself, which would be ideal for this.
All right, so I'm just gonna read off probably the funniest ones that would be on there. I've got Africa by Toto.
Oh wow, that's an inspired choice.
Yeah, that was the very first one that I added to that. By the way, also,
Okay.
I've got some Pixies, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm a big Post Malone fan.
Oh, okay.
Just recently, and my son is also huge into Post Malone. I've got some Hall and Oates.
Classic.
Yeah, I've got a lot of. I've got some local music from a couple of my friends' band,
Okay, nice.
Flaming Lips,
Good choice.
Rick James. Gotta have that. Oh, and
what Rick James song have you got in there?
man, Mary Jane, man, that's like Mary Jane. Like,
Oh man, that's great.
yeah. Oh, Jump in the Line from Beetlejuice.
Oh, Harry Belafonte.
Yes. Oh man.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got some deep cuts in here.
Man, yeah, you that is quite the eclectic playlist you've got going on there. And any time you can throw a bit of Harry Belafonte in a playlist, I'm all about that.
I think that's probably the best song for the ketamine to start kicking into. It's always yeah, when that hits and the ketamine hits right at that, there's no way to describe it.
Wow. That's an experience I need to have in life right there.
Yes. I think everybody needs to have that experience collectively.
So how did you find out about this? How did this actually come into your path?
I'm a huge nerd, so I'm always trying to learn something, read about something that interests me. And so just being in EMS and being in that kind of environment, I've been pretty hyper aware of my PTSD. I just was never willing to accept it.
Right.
So I would always kind of read on Reddit or somewhere online, different things that they were trying. And I know that they were doing psychedelic trials, but I also had remembered something about ketamine. I don't, there's no specific like source that I can,
yeah, you can't point your finger to it and be like, that's the moment.
But there was just a moment where I had reached a very dark point, and I no longer felt safe for my well-being. So I started to look for inpatient somewhere. I didn't know what else to do, and everything had come crashing down, and I had absolutely no will to pick it up and figure it out again. So I just I gave up, so to speak.
Right. So at this point, you're just like, well, fuck it. I'm just willing to try anything that could help here.
Yeah, and I know, like being in EMS, like I know, like I just can't. It's not just like I'm crazy. Commit me. There's an entire process. So like I'm trying to figure out that process for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when like the ketamine, it just popped in my mind. I was like, man, let me look at this. And sure enough, like there was a place 30 minutes away from me that does it. It's like, no way.
Yeah.
Called them up, told them, explained to them, what my situation was, what I needed, and they were like, absolutely. The ketamine treatments, the way that the infusions work, are that so the first 6 you have to get them within 2 to 3 weeks of each other,
Okay.
and they're expensive as fuck. So just personally, where I live, it was about $2,300-$2,400, if not a little more. Fortunately for me, I was able to use a health savings account, and those, first 6 really didn't affect us that much.
Mm-hmm.
And after my first infusion, like I came home and I cried.
Wow.
Like, well, not immediately. I came home, I took a nap, and then I woke up and I cried because everything was different immediately. My mind is quiet. There's not a constant barrage of what ifs kind of surfacing at random, like
Right.
it's like a whack-a-mole game. It's like everything's calm, and the only thoughts in my head are the ones that I actively think about, and the not so good ones, the terrible ones. They can't take root. I'm able to, I can think about them, I can recall them,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can set them back and be completely okay. I was so relieved. Like I could cry right now if I didn't hold it, if I wasn't holding back. Like I was so relieved by the hope I was given from these treatments. And that was just the first one. I immediately knew that from that moment on out, like my mission was to share the word about ketamine treatment infusions for PTSD, anxiety, and depression, as well as try to help first responders and prior military afford them. And with the ketamine, it allowed me to realize a lot of things about myself and accept a lot of terrible, like not terrible things, but just very unpleasant things about myself that my ego wouldn't have allowed for me
Right.
to accept. And being able to accept those things has made me far, far more successful in my endeavors.
Like, what can I ask, Rick? What kind of things have you allowed yourself to accept, if you don't mind me asking?
When you experience so many kind of, tragic events, or that you bear witness to tragedy, you build up a far, far larger than average amount of those kind of what if moments, because you've seen those. Like you have a skewed view of how the world operates because you get exposed to so much.
Right.
That becomes the normal. That becomes what you expect. And then it creates this kind of hyper vigilant version of you where you're always in this like kind of fight or flight mode, because you know that the worst possible thing could happen at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you become hyper fixated on that. And then you can't enjoy life living like that. And I didn't realize how much my life has been affected, and that how poor my quality of life was prior to getting those treatments. I don't feel like I've honestly felt real legitimate emotions until just recently.
Do you feel like that's kind of been a sort of protective shield almost against this sort of inventory of what ifs that you've accumulated through the things that you've seen?
Exactly. And I've always referred to it as my ego, the ego that I've built up to protect myself from
Yeah.
things that won't let me go, because I understand that I don't know how to deal with them. I can't not get rid of them. So I need to figure out, a defense against them. And being this cool, water off a duck's back, calm and collected person that's who, I was trying to be. And then my sense of humor, like I developed a sense of humor to help me deal with the things that were too heavy to deal with.
Right. Yeah, it definitely helps if you can find a mechanism of sorts. I remember reading a quote, and I'm just going to completely paraphrase, and I may even butcher this from memory because my memory's terrible. But it was something along the lines of, "You can never really truly kill your demons. The best thing you can do is tame them."
You can either feed into them or
Yeah. Do you feel like you've stopped doing that? Do you feel like you've stopped feeding
no,
demons?
not completely.
Okay.
I think that I've got a good grasp on my my kind of my mental structure, and now I've been trying to figure out and work on, understanding why I do the things that I do and tracing those back.
Hmm.
And then it's helped me, like the ketamine has helped me with being a father, because prior to the ketamine, I had so much pent up resentment and just a lot of angst and guilt and so many other different emotions wrapped up in a father, because I had a father, but he just wasn't a good one.
Right.
He was a drug addict. He had tried to commit suicide a couple of times, like in, not directly in front of me, but, in the bathroom in the house that I'm,
Right.
fucking living in. So it might as well. And just all of the kind of manipulation and emotional kind of string pulling that he did, kind of that, I think that it really fucked with my, my sense of what a father was. So I didn't like a lot of my references for, like, what a good father is comes from fucking movies or TV shows that I enjoyed growing up. Like
Right.
I would pull traits from, like, this person or this person. And I feel like that whenever I said that, I didn't know if I was running from something or to something. And that's what I meant. And that's why I had such a varied and diverse kind of existence, because I had been searching out
Hmm.
all of the things that I felt I never had,
Yeah.
like from my father. So I was kind of trying to, essentially fill that void by, any means necessary.
Do you feel that being able to kind of, as you say, go back and look at the building blocks to what has created these parts of you, do you feel like that has helped you become a better father, being able to kind of go back and look and see that what you experienced is not what you want to replicate?
Oh, absolutely. And prior to that, like it was very emotionally triggering for me to, because I am like, the best thing that I am and will ever be is a father. And that's something that I knew as early as probably, 6 or 7, that whenever I was going to be a father, that was going to be what I was going to do. And so now, like, being a father and being able to be, because I never learned how to be a father, but I knew what I wanted in a father. So
Sure.
I just be that, and that's just what I am, and it worked. But I had a lot of guilt and a lot of kind of fear, because I knew that I was able to provide this for my son, but it's just I couldn't help but continue to replay my same experiences,
Hmm.
because he's about that age now
Right.
that I was whenever, things started to get pretty bad. But like I said, the ketamine infusions have completely disconnected all of that. And man, it's awesome, because it allows me to I can disconnect myself from, the adult world and all of the stress and all of the things that I have going on personally with what I've been trying to do, and just allow myself to exist in his world and exist how he needs me to be. I let him kind of dictate a lot of the times how we interact, and it's wonderful.
All right, gang. So at this point in the conversation, in a roundabout fashion, me and Rick, we loop back to the topic of art and him throwing himself into this new creative arena, how much he's got from it, this idea of having a mission, a purpose to raise funds and awareness. And yeah, we kind of tap into some of the personality traits that the ketamine therapy has helped him identify, especially this idea of the big picture, which kind of ties into this new creative endeavor. Anyway, rather than tell you any more about it, let's jump right back in.
So one of my biggest issues is is I'm a big picture guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I get really excited about the big picture, and I try to make the big picture without working on any of the details first, because I'm excited. I don't
Okay.
have focus, and I'm all over the place. So I'm not able to. Everything falls apart because I hadn't built the foundation. I hadn't put in. I'm just trying to jump to from step 1 to step 45, and being able to realize that my eagerness isn't necessarily a hindrance as long as I find a way to harness it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of one of the things that I've been working on. Things didn't really come together until like late January this year, because I had gotten a tablet. I had traded my phone in for a tablet and upgraded it that way.
Okay.
So that was like nothing out of pocket, but I had been so focused. I'd been talking to a couple of friends of mine who have already started a 401c nonprofit, and they were going to allow me to kind of piggyback off of them with the nonprofit idea that I had called Ketamin, which was going to be the basis for all of my ketamine actions that I wanted to do, like to help raise funds for people to be able to get their ketamine treatments, to help raise awareness
Mm-hmm.
for ketamine and all of the benefits of it. And so I kind of got into that, and I hit a roadblock. So rather than discouraging it and throwing everything away, I realized this is as far as I can get right now with this. So I set it on the back burner. But at the same time, I'd been so focused on trying to get help for everybody,
Yeah.
or the people that need it. Like I didn't realize that the health savings had ran out, and I wasn't able to afford my own ketamine treatment. So now here I am in the same position that I'm trying to help with. And that's like, I had my tablet. So it was probably, I think, February 6th is when I posted one of my first art pieces, and that night I got an offer for somebody to lease my artwork. Like I did a piece for a buddy of mine for a shirt, and then another friend of mine, I did a piece for their podcast, and they were like, "Yeah, man, it's super cool." And I was like, "They're my friends, of course they like it,
Yeah.
I would hope that even if they didn't, they would
Yeah.
humor me a little bit. But so now I posted it to Reddit. I did 4 pieces based off of local urban legends in Kentucky,
Okay.
and they just kind of blew up a little bit. And that's where the first spark that, holy shit, like people are going to pay me to make art. Like, let's see what I can do with this. Let's see where this goes. So I just start, just working on art without the intention of selling it, just out of creating it to keep my mind focused and to keep, kind of help with the ketamine
Mm-hmm.
dipping below the therapeutic levels and kind of my PTSD symptoms returning. And I got linked up with a couple of guys on Instagram through a page that I followed on Facebook that was an level 0. It was like an EMS meme page, and I had, over the years, like I would send him memes and stuff like that. Like, hey man, check this out, and he would post it. So I was like, hey, I'm doing some art now. What do you think about this? And so he ended up taking, selling a sticker for me in his shop, and I mean, it sold. And then that led into another guy, Black Smoke Sticker Company, who's another really, really good guy. And that's when I started getting into the commissions.
Okay.
And that's like, they were like, hey, can you draw this for me? You're pretty good at, drawing. Can you draw something for me? And I was like, well, I don't know, maybe. So I told them, I was like, hey guys, like, I'm trying to raise money for my ketamine treatments. Like, I'm a retired paramedic. I'm doing PTSD treatment. I just got into this art. I was like, maybe you guys can, just help share some of my art, like that's what I was thinking. Just deep.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, I got so many just overwhelmingly positive reactions, and it took off faster than I realized. And so I had to kind of, on the back end here, start figuring out what a business is.
Right.
Like, I know, like, everybody, what a business is, but like, what is
How do I set one up for myself? Yeah.
Yeah, like, but when it comes down to like holy shit, I've got revenue coming in, I've got work coming in, I've got to figure out how to organize that. So that's been, I think, the hardest part for me is
Yeah, yeah, I can get that. Like keeping track of who wants what, when do they want it by, how much am I charging, how much do I need to pay out? Yeah, I would be rubbish with that.
yeah, I've criminally undersold myself.
But it's a fantastic thing that it's taken off, obviously, because this is you trying to raise money for something that is making a difference, and I'm presuming the ketamine has given you, to a degree, long-term difference in how you are feeling and how you are just being.
Yeah, and I have so much more motivation, so much more drive, and this understanding of myself and my flaw, like this deep, deep understanding, and it's still only scratching the surface of what's wrong with me, but
Right.
it has given me enough to be able to kind of take control of the
Mhm.
ship again. And
Yeah.
like I said, this is probably the most successful I've been at, anything outside of being a paramedic and a father, but
Yeah, but for you, for yourself, outside of being a father, do you feel like this has given you a sense of identity that you kind of maybe lost when you lost the paramedic position?
I think that it does. And not only that, I think that it does give me a sense of identity, but more kind of, it gives me a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Because right now, like the way that I'm looking at it is like I enjoy my art. I love doing art, and that's something that I'm going to continue to do for the rest of my life now.
Hmm.
It's something that like I don't just do, like I will I will take a break from doing commissions to work on my own art because I do that to relieve stress. So
Yeah.
sometimes if I'm stressed out with doing a piece or trying to figure out something with work, I'll take a break from all of it and I will set everything aside and I'll just draw myself for what I want and what I like.
I think that's a really important thing to sort of put out to people as well, is to do something for practical reasons, for fiscal reasons, is great, especially if it's something you love. But you also need to set aside time to do for yourself.
Yeah, man, I came across this thing and I shared it this morning and it was, I guess it's a meme. It was just like a picture, but it just said that to be aware of your happiness triggers as well. And that it just hit me real, real, real hard. I was
Yeah.
like, damn, like, that's right. Like, there are things in life that trigger my happiness.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to look at triggers as being a negative. And I love that kind of idea because I always believe that you can't, like, yes, there are individual moments that are terrible and completely life changing. Like breaking my legs, if you just look at that under a microscope and you just look at that one moment, yeah, that you can put a negative spin on that. But it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Yeah. In a weird way, I know what you mean, because it's really sort of altered the course of things for you, I guess.
That one, I mean, there's been several other, similar events, but that one it's a very, I think, kind of stark contrast to, or it's easy to use as, comparison or as an example of a something that it changed my life completely. It completely altered my entire future and path that I have, I thought that I was on, and I had to basically pick up the pieces and figure out what to do with them. But I'm grateful that I was able to pick them up and find the help that I needed to get to where I am. And now my life's purpose is to help other people achieve that. And the art for me right now is that's my front door. That's what is going to get people to come into the open house and allow me to talk to them. Hey, what do you know about ketamine? What do you know about PTSD? Like, check us out. Check out the other pieces of me that I've been working on my entire life. Like, look how they're coming together.
Alright gang, so there you go. That is a fantastic example of turning lemons into lemonade. Yeah, just absolutely grateful that Rick could lend me his time and his insight and just his open, candid honesty. You know, he has, as I said at the top of the show, lived a hell of a life, and you kind of got just a glimpse of it there. I'm really pleased that things are moving forward for him, that he has found this seismic paradigm shift in his life, and that his trajectory is going in a more positive way. Yeah, and, you know, I love the fact that he's really plugging away and digging into the artwork. The man just, you know, he works non-stop, it seems. You can see his artwork if you go check him out on Instagram. You can find him at Fifty11 Media. There will, of course, be a link in the show notes, both to his Instagram profile and to his Shopify store as well. So, yeah, you can go and check out what he's doing, support the good work that he's creating, and just follow his journey in general, you know, continue to see him move onwards and upwards. So, for next week's episode, we're kind of linking it to this to a degree. So we talked about the Ketamine Infusion Therapy that Rick's had, and we talked about the benefits that he has felt, like the immediate benefits and the long-term benefits. Next week, we're going to be looking at a somewhat related field. We're going to be taking a look at Timothy Leary, the man and his work. Timothy Leary, for those who don't know, is a scientist and an author who is most known for his work with psychedelics, experiments with psychedelics, looking at the therapeutic benefits of psychedelic drugs. Once described by Richard Nixon as the most dangerous man in America. I mean, that alone is worthy of an investigation. Just by itself. But his work with, as I say, psychedelics and looking at the therapeutic effects and benefits of it, just deeply, deeply fascinating stuff. And you're seeing more of it now. You are seeing more and more people tap into the field that he was really a pioneer for. So yeah, next week we're going to be taking a little look at him, the man himself, but more so the work that he actually conducted with a few sort of spotlighted sections on particular pieces of work and experiments. But that is next week. As for this week, we're pretty much done. As usual, I will prompt you to go and subscribe to the show if you haven't done so already. Perhaps you are just joining us, and if you've enjoyed what you've heard so far, then the best way you can keep that good feeling going, and you can also help us out simultaneously, is to simply hit that subscribe button. I say hit. We like to say just gently tap. We like to say boop, actually. Yeah, if you want to boop your subscription button, never stops sounding ridiculous, but yeah, go for it. Boop that subscription button. That shows us a great amount of love and support, and you also get every episode delivered to a device of your choosing. We also do encourage ratings and reviews, in particular haiku reviews. That's what I'm looking for. I am looking for haiku reviews, keeping it to the traditional haiku format and saying nice things about this show. If, of course, you want to keep your feedback to a more streamlined and direct approach, you can do that. You can get in touch with me on Twitter and Instagram at IamMalFoster. Links down in the show notes there. If you go take a look, you can also find links to our Dimed Out Patreon account where you can find extra material, bonus episodes, access to our Discord channel. Yeah, these are just some of the perks of becoming a certified dimer on our Patreon account at patreon.com/dimedout, or as I say, down in the show notes there as well. There's another one in there as well for our coffee page. If you want to take a look at that, you can do. You don't have to, but it's there. It's always good to have options, right? Everybody loves options. Speaking of which, you can listen to every episode of this show that we've ever put out over on YouTube, because we do have one of those. One of them, their YouTube channels. We've got one of them. You can go take a look if you want. We also have a Facebook page as well. So if you're looking to procrastinate even more, then I highly recommend those two as viable gold mines for procrastination. Send me your cat pics on Facebook. That's what I want. I want cat pics, I want memes, I want GIFs, I want it all. And on that note, as always, thank you for listening. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and until next time, keep it dimed out.